the survey if you could. Just takes a minute or two, and it's very very helpful to us. And I always like to start off these meetings with like a tip or something I've kind of thought about. And so what I was thinking about a lot this week, I was spending a lot of time with my stepfather in the last couple weeks. My stepfather's a farmer, and he owns or operates one of the largest farming operations in southern Minnesota. It's pretty impressive how big his farming operation is and for how old he is in doing it. His dad's like mid 90s still farming. But anyway, I was thinking about him a lot because the in the farming community, I grew up with him working 16, 18-hour days in the spring and then in the fall. So I always thought growing up that, okay, summer, winter, he does nothing. He's just basically hanging out doing nothing. And he's really busy in the spring and fall. And what I found out as I got older is that, and even more recently, is that he's actually busiest in the summertime. That's where they have to do all their machinery maintenance. That's where they have to do all their field cultivation and watering and just everything they have to do to make sure their crops are being protected throughout the summer and that they're going to be ready for harvest. And the reason why that got me thinking a lot was because I remember when I first started, a former curarian gave me some of the best advice. It was Butch Bauer, and he told me that most recruiters will take time, not time off, but they'll take the foot off the gas pedal in the summer. And that if someone's looking for a competitive advantage over other recruiters or looking for a way to make their year even better, it's the summertime when you should work your hardest. And that's something that stuck with me. Not saying you shouldn't vacation or enjoy your summer. I mean, I live on a lake and thoroughly enjoy the summer. But I took that to heart from Butch. And I would say I work the hardest in the summer than I do any other time in the year. Because I know, thinking my stepdad's farming analogy, we plant seeds and we harvest. And our planting seeds and harvesting usually is 2 to 3 months after we plant those initial seeds. So if you want to set yourself up to have a great end of the year, as we all do, pushing for higher commissions, setting yourself up for the next year, it's incredibly crucial. And I just want to encourage anyone that can put more effort in the summertime to do so, because it pays off. It's a great way to set yourself up. It's the most predictable measure that we have to set yourself up to finish your year strongly. So I just wanted to encourage everyone to do that. I know our numbers and metrics show it's harder to set interviews, harder to talk to doctors. Everything's harder in the summer. So rather than just like, okay, summer stinks, I'm going to pick it up in the fall, I would encourage you guys to push even harder, to do everything you can to keep your interviews up, because it's going to come harder in the summer than it is the spring or the fall. And if you keep those interviews up, and you have to push a little harder, if you have to work a little bit more, if you have to put extra effort in, it's going to pay off. It's paid off for me, and it pays off for everyone else that does put that extra effort in the summer. And the great thing is that Butch was right 10 years ago, he's right now, is that many recruiters don't do that. So if you decide to do that, it gives you a massive competitive advantage over everyone, and it helps you tremendously to finish your year out. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm going to pass this over to Ian. And the other thing I'm going to say with Ian before I hand this off to him is I believe, and Ian, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but he's going to do something a little different today. He's rather than doing a presentation and then ending with a Q&A, he's going to spatter that throughout the presentation to have involvement from everyone as the presentation's going on. So I don't think we are going to have a dedicated Q&A today. We're going to let Ian take over. I'll finish off the meeting, and then we'll call it a day. And have a great weekend, everyone.
Oh, thanks, Jeremiah. I'm excited. And just real quick, the facts are that with going into the summer, right now we're focused mostly on practicing physicians. We still have clients that are unwilling to take 2026 grads. So that is a kind of fact, a logistical thing that can make it a little trickier to create urgency in the summer. So even more important to keep your activity high. But hey, really appreciate everybody coming together. We're gonna have some fun today, talking about fee bumps, bonus addendums. All right. I know this is something that I got some feedback on, that people would like more information about. How do we get them? How do we use them? How do we pitch them? All this good stuff. And, anybody who's talked with me for any length of time about fee agreements knows that I'm a big proponent of making more money for the same work. I have a sneaking suspicion that many of you may feel the same way. So we're going to talk about some strategies to make that happen. The first thing that I wanted to start with, though, is just a review of these programs to make sure that everybody understands what is available to them and how they work, right? I think that's kind of where it starts. So that way, when you're pitching these things, you know what your potential reward could be upon success. And so as we're going through this, like Jeremiah said, I want to encourage some participation. So we're probably going to have some questions kind of throughout the session. We'll still have time at the end for some Q&A because I expect there are going to be some things that pop up that you're like, hey, what about this? Let's talk about this thing that's maybe tangentially related. But we'll just jump right into it. So let me share my screen. So this is probably going to be the least exciting part of this, just reviewing the policies, okay? But wanted to make sure you guys have this down. So can everybody see my my screen here with the fee bump and the client bonus offer? We're all good to go? Okay. This document, as well as quite a few others, are listed under useful links. So that'll likely be a roundtable for another time, diving into all that and the value that's there, some seriously good gold nuggets. But this is down in Curari policies. So we've got that down there, dormant send out policy, exclusivity guidelines, all that stuff. Okay. So first one we're talking about today is the fee bump. Okay, of these two, a fee bump versus a client bonus offer, bonus addendum, I think a fee bump is easier to obtain. All right, and the big reason for that is it's unlikely to be the amount that a bonus addendum would be. And that's not me saying don't shoot for the stars. Okay, I think we've all been in a scenario where we've thrown out what we thought was a high placement fee, and the client just immediately agrees to it. We're like, man, I probably could have gone maybe 5K more, something like that. Okay, so always start higher. But with this, the fee bump qualifies. You have to get at least a $2,000 more than the existing fee. Okay, and I'm strongly suggesting to ask for significantly more than that. But then the spread between where the fee is and what you end up securing, you're going to get a bonus that's equivalent to 30% of that. Okay. So we can see here that if we're using a $20,000 agreement, we bump it to 20, or excuse me, we're using a $22,000 agreement, we get a $3,000 bump on that, so bring it up to 25, you'd be entitled to $900. That would come right off the top. Okay, so that's a 30% spread of the difference. So you can see the bigger the spread, the more substantial this is going to be. I would strongly suggest if you're looking to bump a fee, going at least 5K, if not 10K. And some of that's going to be situational, okay? But we can always go lower. Not really going to work so hot to go higher, okay? But any questions about fee bumps? I think the policy is relatively straightforward. There is a sliding scale here where as it goes on, it could drop down to 10% if the placement occurs 3 years later. Okay, but that's kind of the only little caveat here. But any questions about the policy? Going once, going twice, sold. Okay. Client bonus offers. All right, this is where it gets exciting, right? We all saw yesterday our biggest bonus offer ever come through. $50,000 for Peter Lee. Okay, so we can do this math together. Right? That's why I sent out that message. Peter's holding $100 bills. He's got a lot of $100 bills that are coming his way from that $50,000 bonus. Okay. So he gets 30% of the spread, 15 grand, you guys. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Okay. And that's a cash bonus. All right. So it's 30% of the spread for whatever that bonus is above and beyond. Okay, or 30%, excuse me, not the spread, 30% of the bonus addendum. Apologies, I misspoke. So, you know, in this example here, we see $15,000 bonus, 30% of that's $4,500, okay? If you're pitching a bonus addendum, I feel like the minimum that you should be starting with is gonna be 15K, okay? If you have to settle on 10, okay. And granted, you guys, we take a 2K bonus addendum if that's all you can get, right? But again, start high, see what you can do. I think, we had a challenge earlier in the year. Peter won that challenge with that $50,000 bonus addendum. I believe the ceiling on this is $100,000 right now. So I would challenge all of you with these, and this is part of what I want to talk about for fee bumps, bonus addendums. You guys need to be pitching these all the time throughout the week. Okay, if you're not doing this frequently, it's unlikely you're going to cash in on these bonuses. Okay, and the worst thing that people are going to tell you, we've all been in this gig for long enough to know, worst thing they're going to say is no. That's okay. All right. So something I wanted to just kind of chat with everybody about. I know some people have secured fee bumps in this group. I know some people have secured bonus addendums in this group. I was curious, for the people who have had success with that, can anyone speak to how that transpired? What worked for them? Just curious if anybody's got something to share.
This may not be super helpful, Ian, but I know mine, when I secured them last year, were based on good relationships with clients and people that already trusted me. So the people that I had good relationships with, that's who I went after, and it was a lot easier for me to talk to them about it.
Yep, that certainly gives you a leg up.
I think the bonus addendums that I've secured have been, or just maybe a couple of them have been based off of pain points that I hear when talking with clients, identifying, hey, we really need a physician in this location, or we really need this specialty. Anytime you hear that desperation or that kind of pain point of we urgently need this, or Ian, can you help me with this specialty? Instant trigger to pitch an addendum to prioritize that specialty or that urgent need.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's true. Logan, you've had some real good success with that. So have you, Jeremiah. Anybody else have anything to add? It's okay if not. So now let's go to the other side of the equation here. I'm curious, for those that have attempted fee bumps, attempted bonus addendums, where it has not been successful. Anybody speak to that? Any objections, friction points, something you've run into?
Usually on the ones that I've pitched out, it's kind of goes into what Logan said. It's not that big of a need, so they don't have an incentive to put out the money for it.
Yeah. Yep. I think it's common, and some of the objections, and I'm not trying to skip ahead too much here, but it's either going to boil down to urgency, right? Like you just said, Levi, or it's going to be a financial concern. We'll get into a little bit more of that later, but I'd say that if we're looking at broad strokes, those are going to be the two main things that you're likely going to have to overcome. And so you're going to have to be equipped to talk about that. So one of the best ways to do that, actually, Levi, what you mentioned is a perfect segue for me, so I appreciate that, is identifying the urgency for specific roles. Okay, that is absolutely paramount when it comes to pushing a fee bump, and in particular, a bonus addendum. Okay, you need to know not only what do they want our help with, but what are their top priority searches or search. Okay, so let's kind of discuss what that means. Okay, what are some questions that you can be asking clients to help understand where is the urgency? Where are their pain points? Okay, like Logan was saying. So first thing I like to identify once I've asked, so what are your top priority needs? They might give me one, they might give me several. Okay, the next thing I'm going to ask about is kind of what's the drop dead date here? All right, how long can you go without having someone in this position? Right, before you start losing money, you start losing referrals. That's huge. Okay, in many areas of the country where the physician market is very competitive, the market share is already taken up 100%. Okay, there's not a lot of communities with large populations that are outside of primary care, I would say, where they're recruiting because there's such a huge need for the service. Many times it's to expand their share of the market. They want a bigger piece of the pie. Okay, and so when you're considering that, how long can they afford to, let's say, not have the 2 cardiologists they just lost, and now all those referrals are going to a different employer, and they might not get it back. They wait too long. Now patients are already established with other providers, right? So these referral patterns, how long they can go without having someone in that role, is really important for you to understand, because that's going to allow you to emphasize the urgency for that and the ways in which we can address that urgency. Okay. I also like to know, what resources are they currently using? If something's a really high priority, I have to feel like they're likely spending time on it already, right? Outside of whatever service we might be providing or assistance we might be providing. So I'm confident they're likely advertising on their own. Are they using other search firms? Do they have a retained search going? You know, what avenues are they exploring at this point to try to fill these jobs or job as quickly as possible? Okay. I also like, and this is kind of tied into the first thing I mentioned about how long can they go without filling this. I also like to know how long they've been searching already. Are they 30 days in? Are they 6 months in? Right? Imagine how long, if they're going 3, 4, 5, 6 months, somebody's hurting. Somebody's getting a lot of pressure to fix this problem, right? And luckily for them, they're talking to a Curari consultant who can provide that support, who can fix that problem. It's one of the things I love about this job, you guys, is we get to be problem solvers. Somebody comes to us with an issue, it's an employer. Hey, we're losing money, we're losing referrals. We can fix that. Doc's coming to us, not making enough money, I'm working too much, I'm too far away from my family. We can fix those things, get a lot of gratification from that, okay? But going back to kind of the pain points here, the urgency, you have to figure out like how bad this is, because if they're not experiencing some kind of pain, it's going to be harder to get them to agree, I think, in particular to a fee bump, maybe less so with the bonus, or excuse me, other way around, harder to get them to agree to a bonus addendum, maybe less so with the fee bump. We'll talk a little bit about that more, but that's why you really need to figure out where their head is at with this, okay? Get a baseline, get a good understanding of what's going on in their process. Any particular questions about any of that stuff right now? Just checking in. Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about kind of when to act. Okay, how do you present these things? How do you kind of find a segue into the conversation? You know, I think it's clear that if you've got an existing relationship with the client, they know who you are, that's going to make it a little bit easier to transition into that conversation, okay? But regardless of your relationship with the client, I want to talk about how to approach both a fee bump and a bonus addendum, okay? So let's start with the fee bumps, all right? So what I want to remind everybody is that any fee that is less than $25,000, and we might even push that up a little bit, considering I was happy to report I don't think it was this week, I think it was last week, that our average placement fee right now is around 27K, which is fantastic. So maybe I should be saying 27K, but you know, I think in terms of this, looking at $25,000, or if the fee is older than 2 years, everyone, those are targets for you. Those are targets, okay? And we make it really, really easy to identify when you need to take action on that, because every single physician future that you put into your doc's records has the fee amount and date it was signed right there, right by where you're clicking name clearance, email, and send out, right? So to be clear, this is something where if you note it's out of date, it's low, that's an agenda item for you to make sure that you address with the client. Is it a scenario where you know, it's 100% stop, do not pass go? Almost never. Okay, we're not gonna kind of hold it hostage over the fee agreement. There are a few exceptions where our fee is just so terribly low that there are some clients out there we've decided to pause our efforts in hopes that we can come to an agreement in the future. Okay, but for the most part, I really want to encourage everybody, like I was saying earlier, take a lot of swings, create a lot of opportunities. If you just do it when you're going through your clearances and your send outs and your follow-up, you could probably throw out multiple fee agreements every week pretty easily, as long as you're thinking about it. You're remembering to do it. That's the big thing, because I can guarantee you everybody who's in this meeting would like higher fees, would like to make a commission, right? But you got a lot of things that you're working on. You can be spread pretty thin, and sometimes you're moving quickly, and these things might not be front of mind. So don't let yourself get in that position. Make sure that you've got this as something that you need to talk about. That goes to something that I want to make sure everybody knows, that the time to address a fee bump, okay, is not after you've already done all the work and the doctor's getting a contract. Okay, you've really missed your window. Are we still going to ask? Of course. Are they going to be particularly reluctant to agree to apply it to that candidate? Yes, they will. Okay, so by addressing it early, you're setting expectations. All right, so don't let it get too far along in the process before you're bringing this up. You could, I would think when you send the CV, that's a great time to address it. Right, and I'll remind everybody, when you're following up on your clearances and your send outs, if you pick up the phone, it's going to be a lot easier to pitch these things on the phone than it is in an email, because you'll be able to provide some back and forth, some rebuttals to objections, things like that. Okay. For fee bumps, I'm gonna quote the legendary Bronx rapper Fat Joe. All right, and his quote here is, "Yesterday's price is not today's price." Right? So inflation, all these things have gone up. It's more expensive than ever to recruit the highest demand employees in America, physicians, right? So you should all feel very confident in going to a client with a low fee or an old fee and letting them know this no longer reflects our current costs to identify and refer physicians to you. Our placement fee in 2025 is $35,000. So I'm not gonna make this language real flowery, okay? You're gonna want to go in there pretty straightforward. I think this is one of those times where just saying what you clearly want concisely, many times you're just gonna get an okay. And other times we're gonna talk about what happens if you don't get the okay, all right? Some of the key indicators here aren't just, is the fee old or low? It could be a client telling you they're having problems identifying candidates, right? Going back to the urgency, or we've been looking for 6 months. You might also hear something like, well, we haven't been getting that many candidates from you already, so why would we agree to pay you more? Might be something they would say. Okay. I would counter that by saying, well, I would attribute part of the reason you might not be getting as many candidates from us is because your fee is $25,000 and it's from 2018. Our placement fee in 2025 is $35,000. So when we've got a team of 30 commission-driven consultants, it's difficult for them to leave that much profit on the table, that much revenue on the table, right? And what we want, client, is we want your fee to motivate our team, to incentivize our team, to take time away from other things, to work on your searches in lieu of other things. But they're just not going to do that with our current fee structure. Okay? So I think you've got to be able to provide compelling and hopefully relatively concise reasons for this. I keep mentioning concise because I feel the more that you try to explain this, defend it, it then becomes easier for someone to poke holes in what you're saying. So you kind of want to limit their ability to do that, okay? One of the big things I try to do by asking all of these questions early on about the urgency, about how long have you been working to fill this? What happens if you don't? How long do you have, right, before something's going to happen, before you're going to start losing money? Because then I'm able to kind of paraphrase these things back to them, reflect it back to where it almost sounds like it's their idea, right? And I know this might sound a little dramatic, but you could go so far as to say, well, you know, I wouldn't always suggest this, or I wouldn't even normally suggest this, but given the urgency that you're describing with this search and how, you know, if you don't have someone in there in 3 months, I really want to be able to get this over to our team and have them drop everything and work on this for you. For that to happen, we need to increase the fee because it no longer reflects our current costs, or, right, we need to get a bonus addendum in place. Right? Both of those things are going to elevate your job or jobs to the top 1%. You know, use your discretion here, 1%, 5%, whatever, maybe 1 or 2%. I like 1. Top 1% of our jobs for our entire company. So it's going to get everybody's attention. Everybody's going to say, oh man, look at the potential reward that I could get from working on this. I want to focus on this search. And I have a feeling that that's what you're looking for in terms of a recruiting partnership, is a recruiting firm that's really going to elevate your opportunities. And so this is what it would take for that to happen. Okay. So that, to me, that's really what this is about, is, you know, we have to update our placement fee because it no longer reflects the time, energy, and resources required to identify the most in-demand employees in America, but it's also going to further incentivize our team and elevate your position to demand their time. All right. I've got all these nice little quotes and word tracks for you guys. I'll get this sent out after the meeting. Okay. But that way you can kind of tailor some of these things to your individual clients, presentations, whatever the situation might be. Okay. The common objections, I think, are relatively straightforward here, everybody. Okay. Too much money. Can't afford that. Can't afford that bonus addendum. Can't afford that fee bump. Okay. That's why we start high. Right. And if you have to end the conversation without coming to an agreement because you feel like you're having to negotiate too low, go ahead and do it. There's nothing that says you can't call them back the next day or a couple days later and say, you know, was able to talk with my manager about it, and we agree that we can meet in the middle here. All right, that's okay to do that. But the too much money objection, I think, rarely holds water, especially when you consider that many of the employers that we work for are, you know, multi-million-dollar corporations, if not billion-dollar corporations, right? One of the funny things I do, I don't want to get too far off track here, but one of the funny things I like to bring up when we have like a large health system that's arguing over what seems to be a relatively small amount of money for a physician, I'll go and I'll look at their market cap, right? Be like, oh, okay, so HCA, that's got a market cap of like $82 billion. You can't afford an extra $20,000 for this physician. You can't afford an extra $10,000 to incentivize us. Hey, somebody's got their mic on. John, that might be you. Can you mute, please? Thank you. So the money aspect, I think, is all relative to what they stand to lose, right? And Curari, we're a relatively small business. We depend on cash flow. We understand these things. But at the same time, if you agree to pay us an additional $15,000 to help find a neurologist, okay, and that neurologist stays for any length of time, there's no way that you and your team are going to look back on that and say, you know what, it was a huge mistake that we paid Curari that extra money to get this physician who's now a cornerstone of our practice. They're just not going to say that, you guys. So you need to be confident in how you're presenting this, right? Don't feel like you're asking them for something that we don't deserve. We all work really hard, and our work is extremely valuable, not just in terms of a tangible dollar amount, but the impact it can have on individuals' lives, on the employers' lives, and the communities that are served by those physicians and employers. Okay, so this is big stuff, and the things that we ask for are kind of just a drop in the bucket when it comes to their overall money that they have access to. Okay, another objection might be, well, we already have a placement fee with you, and you're already sending us candidates. Why would we agree to pay you more? Okay. And I've got a good canned response for this that we can edit a little bit, but in essence, it's, I appreciate your desire to keep expenses in check, and I do feel like our current fee levels are fair. However, our current fees with you are not keeping up with what's become the worst seller's market in the last 30 years. Physicians have more options. They've got more recruiting firms to work with, job boards, online resources than ever. They've never been more courted by more employers. And so as a result, it's that much more competitive. So if you want to get the top talent and you want us to be focused on your searches in lieu of other things, that's what we need. I'm confident that with an increase in our fee, you will see better results. I can't guarantee a placement, right? But I can guarantee that that's something that is going to help. It's going to produce more results. One of the other things that I have in here, and this is something I think that Jerry, you put together for us, which is just great. And these numbers might not be completely accurate still in terms of the number of jobs here, but we've got close to 8,000 jobs in our database, maybe more. Okay. Our rate of closing the jobs in total, regardless of the fee amount, it's about 3.5%. Okay. When those fees are in excess of $30,000, that effectiveness at closing those jobs leaps to almost 30%. That's some compelling data. So again, we can't guarantee a placement, but this higher fee will absolutely result in more attention immediately for you, client, right? And our team, just like I mentioned, hey, if this person stays for a reasonable amount of time, you're not going to look back and regret this. When you think about what this does for our team's going to remember that you wanted to reward us, that you wanted to partner with us, that you saw the value that we can bring to the table. And this higher fee, that's really going to motivate us. It's going to make us feel really good about working for you and trying to provide the highest level of service possible. Okay. So that's the majority of what I've got for us today. I think I kind of kept this on target in terms of the timing pretty well. And so wanted to bring this up now for some Q&A here. And we'll just let you guys roll. If you want to talk certain strategies, you want to talk about a client you've got, you're trying to pitch something to, let's get into it. Obviously, any questions, but the floor is now open.
Yeah, Ian, a couple objections that you were talking about, and a few things that I say to clients, I hope that you could just maybe expand on and use your expertise is, when they talk about too much money, a few things that I wrote down was, I usually try to cover with them, well, how much money are they currently losing right now by not having a provider? And if we can fill that need, how much money is that going to save them? And that cost versus that, bonus versus what the need would fill, how much money is that actually going to save them? And then another thing I tell them a lot that you could expand on is, if I'm talking to a good client, I'm saying, yeah, of course I'm going to focus on your search. I'm loyal to you. I, put a lot of effort into you, but I can't speak for my colleagues. I can't speak to where they're going to put their focus and effort in. And I'll usually say, by increasing the fee, this is how I can guarantee I'm going to get all my recruiters' eyes and all my colleagues' eyes on, your job, and the potential of having that many more people pushing for your job is going to increase significantly. Just a couple of things I say to clients in that, and if you want to expand on that, please.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the money aspect here, I think, is really tied into, how long they can go without having someone in this role. But I think, breaking it down like that definitely makes sense. I mean, if let's say they've had a physician who has been a top producer, they know this physician's going to be retiring in 90 days. What type of revenue loss are they looking at without someone being in that role? We know it can be very substantial, and that's part of the reason why locums physicians are paid at a premium amount, because those employers are then desperate to get somebody if they can't find somebody permanent and full-time. So asking about the type of revenue they stand to lose, the profit they stand to lose without hiring someone in as quickly as possible is very much a relevant point to discuss here. The other thing that you mentioned, Jeremiah, I think that's also very relevant here, is understanding that. And I kind of lost my train of thought, Jeremiah. What was the second thing that you mentioned?
Oh no, I was just saying that, if it's a good client relationship, I'm always put my best foot
Oh,
forward,
yes,
I
yes,
always
yes.
lower it, and the other
Part
colleague,
part
but
of the
this idea,
sale.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm back on it. Thank you, man. Part of the sale has to be the idea of that this is what's going to get our team to rally around you as an employer, you as one of our valued clients, right? And the idea here, and something I mentioned earlier, this is going to elevate you as a client, or if it's a bonus addendum, this particular job, right, to the top 1% for our entire company. All of our consultants are going to want to work for you as a result of the commitment that you're making to us. That's going to come back to you, right? And that kind of goes to what I was saying earlier as well, where, we might have a fee agreement with them. We might be doing okay, but they're like, well, you're not sending us that many people now. Well, that's maybe because we don't have the right incentives to do so, right? An old fee, a low fee certainly will contribute to our to work for that client. So it's really a two-way street here when it comes to that. But yes, good points, Jeremiah. Identifying revenue lost, super important, and making sure they understand that this commitment's going to get more eyeballs on their job. It's going to get more dedicated time put towards sourcing for their positions.
I'd like to jump in really quick on the bonus addendum here and just mention a couple of buzzwords one for the bonus addendum in particular, and that's opportunity cost. At Curari, we have the opportunity to do a lot of different things. On a per desk basis, we have a lot of autonomy, you guys. It's pretty sweet, I think. It's one of my favorite things about this gig. And the opportunity costs could be that you're going to spend your time working on a $22,000 fee, or you might want to spend your time working on a $35,000 fee, or hell, you might want to spend your time working on a $60,000 fee. I know which one of those is going to garner the most attention from our recruiters and provide them the opportunity to spend time on that job as well. And so as a company, we've got thousands of jobs we could be focusing on. And, most of them are in that 24 to 30K fee range. And Ian, I wanted to correct one stat you put out earlier. You were mentioning the June average fee, Ian, of 27,000. That was a great comeback we had last week when we had 9 placements and some really, really awesome fees. But the average fee for the year right now across the board is $28,300. And that is being somewhat lofted up by a couple of $80,000 fees, a couple of $50,000 fees, but we're going to start to see at least that 50K range become more normal when you're getting a 20K addendum to show a client that I want to rally my team around my efforts, because ideally you're pitching this to an owned client or an exclusive client, maybe even a new client, but this is your opportunity to really sell your own service, your own expertise, and your ability to rally the team behind you to focus on this one job ahead of thousands of others that we have. And the sole reason we're going to do that for you, Mr. and Mrs. Klein, is the money that you're going to offer us. Don't sugarcoat it. You don't need to. You're going to give us this carrot, and we're going to chase after that carrot for you. And know how many people are going to chase after that carrot for you? There's going to be 30 of us chasing after that carrot, along with our $250,000 advertising budget and physicianrecruiting.com. Your fee, this addendum, is going to allow us, our whole team, not just me, to be proactive. And so that's one of the key ways to throw that addendum out there, is that opportunity cost that we're taking, the opportunity that we could make money across this whole map, and we're going to concentrate today on Albany, New York. Even though it's gray and it's dirty, and we're going to concentrate on Albany because it's a $75,000 fee. What else do I have to lose? You guys saw the big check come in yesterday for Peter. He's not here today. He might have a bonus hangover, you guys. He got that 50K check in. The big check's coming into him early next week. And that was an $80,000 fee. And that was in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. I never heard of Pittsfield, Massachusetts till about 2 years ago. And I am a geography expert. I know most towns in America, and Pittsfield just came on my radar a couple years ago, and this year we made 160K, including two 50K bonus addendums. So for Peter, that's going to be 30K worth of bonus revenue right on his W-2, bonus income rather, right on his W-2, 30K on top of all the rest of the money he makes. So the opportunity is amazing if you get your client to buy into you spending your opportunity, making their job your top priority along with our team. That's the sales pitch you're trying to sell. That's the story you're trying to weave when you're selling this product to our client. The second keyword that I want to mention here is time value of money. Time value of money. How many of you know that your $20,000 that you had in your 401k in 2021 ain't worth $20,000 anymore? That's me. That's me. I think that's everybody. I hope everybody in this room knows about that. The way money loses value over time, right? Time value of money. The easiest thing to do is be ready to type into Google, see when our fee agreement was signed and say, oh, our fee agreement was $22,000 in 2017. I see that's actually $29,000 now, according to Google. So let's pitch a 32K fee. You know what I mean? So use that as your aid, but that's a key buzzword too when you're pitching the fee upgrades, the fee bumps in particular, and even new client fees, is that time value of money. We're trying to lock them into a fee right now where, sir, we're not going to up your fee for another 3 years if we get this 32K locked in here in 2025. We don't know what 3 years is going to bring, but you have no problem mentioning that because I'm going to feel pretty good about that fee probably. If not, we'll pitch a bonus addendum and no problem. But two key buzzwords that I always use is opportunity costs and time value of money. I have them on my mind often when I'm talking finances in this job. We have a pretty small lane that we're really working in the grand scheme of things. So bonus addendums, new client fees, and fee bumps. Those are great things to be looking for all the time to make yourself some extra money and give yourself some motivation and direction on where to put your marketing efforts. Thanks, Ian.
I just wanted to say something about the way that we are presenting ourselves when we are negotiating these. From my experience, not just in the very short time that I've been here, but places I've worked before, is sometimes I see where, for example, the Gwinnett clinic that I was working, we had been trying to get him to bump his fee from 2003 for quite some time, and then only by a couple of $1,000s. So I was talking to him and just kind of coming in, and he forwarded me a thing from before where we offered him 24K instead of 22K. And I just said, hey, that's not applicable anymore. And I think especially with certain personalities, if we are undervaluing ourselves so easily that they're not going to be as they're not going to feel the need to get back to us right away, because if we come across as desperate, they're going to think we're desperate and treat us that way. Right. So if we come in and showing what we're worth and then negotiating from there, I think we have a better chance. And to also Ian's point, if someone's just really trying to lowball you, I mean, this guy hadn't increased the fee since 2003. That's wild, right? So if someone's really trying to just be like, trying to get as little out of us as possible when we know they are capable of so much more, I think walking away from it or just absolutely saying no is a lot of times better than really just, a 22-year-old fee and coming back. And I just think it's better to present ourselves in a way where we're not desperate, right? We have so many doctors we're working with. We have so many clients we're working with. Of course, we want the business, right? But do we want it from someone who doesn't want to increase their fee for 22 years? And when they do, they're like, oh, I'll do it by $2,000, right? So I think coming in with confidence at what our value is versus kind of this scarcity mindset of, oh, I have to get this, so if he's only going to give me 2K more or what have you, I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, great point, Ashley. Again, yesterday's price is not today's price. But more specifically here, when a client offers us such a low fee amount, and I consider an extremely low fee amount to be anything less than $20,000, I don't feel like they're respecting the value that we're bringing to the table. They're not really looking at it as a partnership. And I'm not saying that we have to be best friends, but I at least want to feel like they respect the service that we're providing and understand how valuable it is. And if you're trying to, as an employer, if you're coming to me with, well, we pay all these other firms $15,000, so you have to pay us, that's all we're going to pay you, they can keep that. We're not going to take $15,000 to place a doctor. We're way too far past that, right? If you've been at Curari for a really long time, like I have, you remember that. I can remember when $20,000, we were like stoked about $20K. That was a great fee. That was 16 years ago. Okay, so the looking at like Jerry mentioned, just the inflation, just Google searching what is $22,000 from 2005 worth today. If you only have that at your disposal, I still think that's a pretty solid argument. But the good news is we've got a lot more resources and a lot more justification for why we need this. But to kind of go back again to what Ashley was mentioning here, just be confident in the service that we offer. Don't be afraid to tell them no. That's just not going to work. We need a higher fee than that in order to provide the service, right? Sometimes I think, and I would not suggest saying this to a client, but sometimes I think a response to that would be, oh, you can only pay us $18,000. I see. Well, what part of our service would you like for us to exclude? Right? They probably wouldn't react too well to that, but that's kind of what's rolling around in the back of my head when they're trying to lowball us here, right? But really good point, Ashley. Thank you.
Another common rebuttal I've come across recently, and is usually dealing with larger clients, is, well, we have so many other so many other fees. What you're asking is way above what we know, what else we're paying everywhere.
Right.
That's been a common one I've gotten.
And I can appreciate that. And I actually have in one of my canned rebuttals here, I've got a response just for that, Levi, to just kind of keep it short summary here. It's I'd like to think we're a step above many of those other recruiting firms that you're working with. We own and operate physicianrecruiting.com. We've got an advertising budget of hundreds of thousands of dollars. We've been in business for close to 35 years now. We've got a diverse and experienced team of consultants that all want to work for you. I don't know that the other firms that you're working with can say all those same things.
I also, to add to that, Ian, mentioned the length that we've been doing this. I was talking to Jerry. We've been doing this for 34 years. There's very few recruiting firms that have specialized in physician recruitment that can probably even come close to half of that. So it's like, we've seen it, been there, done that, watch people come, go, leave, and we're still here. And so, while I respect that and people are, all willing to offer their services at a lower fee, we feel that we have a grasp on the market that's better than anybody.
And Levi, what'd they say again? Levi?
Say it again.
Did they say the fee was too high or higher than your competitors, right?
Right.
How'd it go? That's what they said?
You're way,
it was
way
that.
more.
Oh yeah, I completely understand that. Fees will vary across this industry, and we welcome that competition. We're going to send you candidates, and you could decide if our fee that's going to be a little bit higher than our competitors is worth paying for. That's what I like to go at them with, because, proof's in the pudding, and most of the time our pudding's pretty thick.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what the fee is. If we don't present them a good candidate.
Again, that's
Can that be our
contingency-based
company
recruiting.
logo or our new company mantra? Our pudding's thick.
Maybe internally.
I think we've got the new signature line. Yep.
Oh,
Sorry,
I'm just
Dave, what'd
saying,
you say?
it doesn't matter what our fee is. If you don't hire that doctor, you're not paying anything. I mean, you don't think the doctor's worth the extra 10 grand?
Right.
Don't hire the doctor. No skin off my back.
Yep.
Somebody else will hire him.
Great example.
I'll still get the doctor placed. That was good. also going to
Great
say one thing,
example.
that it's going to look at it as a team effort, to follow up
Sure,
on
go
what
ahead.
Ashley was saying. Every time we send a candidate to Oak Street for $18,000, we are just telling them that that's what our service is worth. And so anytime you see one of these low fees and you're just like, well, it's in a great location, I should send it anyways. No, you need to try and hit them up about that fee and hold the fact that you've got a candidate that's interested in their job over them and try and use that as leverage to get it. If we do that enough times and we don't send them the candidates, they will up the fee eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had, I think, very closely related to what we're talking about just now, a situation yesterday where a client basically was requesting a different fee for part-time and said something along the lines of like, well, if we can't amend this agreement, I don't know if we're going to be able to continue using Curari for the majority of our searches. And you guys, just like Dave was saying here, the solution to that is super easy. It's don't offer a candidate we send to you a part-time job, and then you'll never have to pay our full fee. That's it. But if you're choosing to offer them part-time, that's the deal. The price is the price. Full-time, part-time, per diem, whatever, doesn't matter. What's our service about? Identifying, referring candidates. That's what we get paid for. Not how much they work, how long they work, all that other stuff. It's probably a different presentation, but just thought it was an interesting way to think about it. Anybody got anything else?
Ian, one time I had a client tell me, why should we pay a full fee if they're only going to work part-time? If they're only going to make the, less money for us, why do we have to pay you for a full fee or for a full-time fee?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, if you go to Best Buy and tell them you want to buy a laptop, for work,
Mm-hmm.
and you're only going to use it 2 days a week, they're not going to cut the price of the laptop in half.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great, Tanner. I've used a very similar analogy about the purchase of a car, where I say if you go to a car dealership and you buy a car, right, you've agreed on a price, let's say you financed it, so you've got your monthly payment locked in, okay? You go back a month later and you say, you know what? I'm only driving this car about half as much as I thought I would, so I'm just going to cut my monthly payment in half. You guys are cool with that, right? And they're going to laugh at you and say, no, that's not legal, right? But you don't buy a car based on how much you're going to use it. It's the car. In the same way that when you're using our service, you don't get to define, they don't get to choose the value of our service, you guys. And that speaks to what Dave was saying about Oak Street and what we're trying to get here. We define that. Okay. And when they start questioning the value of our service, like you just said, well, why would we pay you that for that? It shows me they don't understand what our job is. They think our job is to help them make money. That's the doctor's job, right? Our job is to provide them that asset who then can do that. How they utilize that asset, we have zero control over, zero input on. So we cannot
one
be
thing I say,
responsible for what happens after that.
with the part-time rebuttal, one thing I'll say too is our time, our effort, and the money that we put out to a part-time candidate is equal to a full-time. It's no less time, it's no less effort, it's no less expense on our end to introduce a part-time candidate versus full-time. That's one thing I say to a lot of clients when they bring that up.
So that's a perfectly concise way to phrase that, Jeremiah, is that our effort to identify and refer these physicians is identical, regardless of how much they work for you, their manner of employment, none of that changes. And that's why we don't discount our service.
And if we have an agreement that's in our paper, it is crystal clear what they're signing, and remind them, hey, you would expect us to uphold our agreement. You would expect, for anything in there for us to honor our agreement. You signed our agreement, and it explicitly states locums, part-time, irregardless of the amount of work, however that's stated. It's clearly stated in our agreement. They signed it.
Mm-hmm. And that's how the cookie crumbles.
Yes. Well, does anyone else have
Anybody?
any questions? Oh, sorry, Ian, go ahead.
I was going to say the same thing, Jeremiah. Anybody else got any additional
I just got a
questions,
side comment about
comments?
part-time. Most people, when you talk to the candidates, you talk to a candidate about a full-time job. They want a full-time job. When the conversation switches to part-time, it's usually because it's not a good match in the first place. So hold your guns, because it just, there's a good chance that, I don't know, if it is a better match, they would go full-time. That's kind of your leverage there. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Well, guys, I'll conclude the meeting. If anyone has any questions, definitely hit up Ian. He is a wealth of knowledge and can answer anything if you guys can think about something afterwards. I will be leading the next roundtable on the 11th of Friday the 11th. Jerry is going to be leading the one on the 18th. Friday the 18th, and Logan on the 25th. And to kind of conclude the meeting, I have 2 ideas for my roundtable on the 11th. I wanted to throw it out there and see what the group would be most beneficial, or what everyone would like to hear. My 2 topics that I was thinking about talking about were do's and don'ts of interviewing doctors and onboarding new clients. Is there a consensus on, or a majority on, what everyone would like to hear about?
I'm
Maybe
gonna
they can
vote for
email you.
onboarding clients, please.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I was saying I was going to, I'll put in my vote for onboarding new clients.
Okay. And anyone else have a vote on what they would like to hear?
People might need a little bit of time to think about it. Could they email you, Jeremiah, if they've got
Yeah.
a preference?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's great, because I think both are great topics to talk about. I'll send an email out, and whoever would like to respond, majority wins, and I'll go on that topic. But no, it sounds great. As a reminder, please fill out the survey if you can. That would be great. It's very helpful to us. And if you have any future meeting topics, please let us know, and that will be helpful to us as well. Before we depart, anyone else have
team, really
anything?
quick before we depart here, it's tomorrow's basically July 1st. I mean, we got one more day left of June. That means we're halfway through our year. So personally, professionally, if you have goals that you're looking to achieve this year, it's not too late, you guys. You guys got plenty of time left to kick it in, achieve the goals that you want to achieve, both here at Curari and in your personal lives. We're only halfway through the year, so if you're behind where you need to be right now, just crank it down a little bit. Whether that's personally exercising a little bit harder, reading more books, calling more docs here at Curari, whatever it might be. But one thing that I would wrap into that goal for everybody in this room that I'm looking around at right now is spending time finding new clients. Right now at Curari, finding a new client with a new client fee bonus is the only direct route to being their sole point of contact at Curari. From there, you could build up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 clients, 10 clients, who knows, that you could really focus your day on, and you're not looking for stuff to do, and you're finding 6 to 8 clients that you could really build a relationship from the ground up with. And you guys, the streets are paved with gold out here. In the last year, this year alone, we've had 168 placements. It is right now. We're in month 6. We've averaged about 4 placements per month that nobody had to do any work on, that the computer did the work for once you guys wrote the ad for the job. All you had to do was write the ad for the job. Computer went out and got a CV. Ad hopper put the job right in the docs file. The email was sent to somebody in the morning. The name clearing email was sent by noon that day. And you get that privilege when you go out and find a new client and grow them from the ground up. And a lot of times it comes with a good bonus. I think there's a few people that could talk about that in this room, people that haven't been here that long even. So the opportunity to make money with these new client bonuses, the opportunity to direct your marketing effort with these new client bonuses is just outstanding. And you should really be taking advantage of it. You should find a way to be calling and targeting the new client search for about at least an hour a day. Put in 30 calls per day, seeking out new clients alone. Those are 2-minute calls, you guys. maybe 2 minutes, maybe 1 minute. Lots of times you're just leaving a voicemail. We all have the docs that need to go to certain places that you could use as the backbone of these searches. So I urge you to make that part of your game plan, especially over the course of July. July is a light month, you guys. I promise you. Heed these words. You need to work your asses off in July to make things happen. People are transitioning. So put this into your game plan. Go find some new jobs, find some new clients, get some bonus opportunities that you could rely on marketing for over the next 90 to 120 days. Give yourself some targets, and you'll really be able to see the advantage of that shows in your W-2 at the end of the year if you cash in on some of these. So I wish you all the best on that, and let's go get them.
Awesome, everyone. Well, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the hopefully great weather for everyone, and yeah, and best of luck next week. Hope everyone crushes it next week.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Jeremiah.
it,
Thanks,
everybody.
Ian.
Short
Thanks,
week,
guys.
guys. Short week, July 4th. Woo-woo.
Yep, 4 days. Make 5 days of effort into 4 days of work, everyone.
That's right.
See you guys.